for this. There is a gap here. Your textbook starts assuming that you have a basic understanding of international cultures or like timeline or calendar or holidays and all that. And I've noticed that this has been missing because that starts with all the treaties and theories and all that. But as an international business professor, I thought that this major part has been missing that you guys don't know. And I told you guys that it occurred to me when I said that I gave my students one day off, which your Wednesday, you will have one day off if you're my spring student and you're with me March 20th, you will have one day off because it's my New Year. So I've noticed that the students are like, what is New Year? Like, New Year already passed and all that. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been teaching like international business for so many years and my students don't know that New Year's are very different all around the world. Calendars are different, holidays are different, just like the culture that is different, it comes with it. Mostly with religion it comes, the calendar differences, just like Christian calendar is Gregorian because it starts with birth of Jesus Christ, right? That doesn't mean that in Hebrew, in Judaism country like Israel or Muslim countries, it should be the same. So therefore, I decided to start this PowerPoint for my students. We don't find this information anywhere. I just developed myself, and I would like to start with this first. You have a basic understanding, and then we start with chapters next session. Okay, so, and I already told you guys, I lived like in 3 different continents. I worked in 3 different continents, studied 3 different continents. I've been to 25 countries, so I'm very familiar with different cultures. That's why I thought that everybody knows it, and then I've noticed that no, I'm actually jumping to the conclusion. And I called it World 101. It's just the basic ones. The continents. Now, the reason I say continents, you might laugh, like, why is she talking about continents? So we all know the continents. No, you actually don't know the continents. You know why? Because you believe that these are the continents. Not all textbooks around the world teach the same continents that you think they should teach. Believe it or not. Continents, some countries teach in their textbook, primary textbook, 5 continents. Some teach 6 continents, and some teach 7 continents. Growing up, depending on each region or each country of the world you are, the textbooks are very, very different. The first time you might know Persian Gulf, right? Which is here, Persian, so we say Persian Gulf too, and I'm married to an Arab. So, which they call it Arab Gulf, and we freak out, Persians freak out if you call it Arab Gulf. And later on, I figured out, my husband and his friends actually said, the first time in our life we've ever heard Persian Gulf was when we came to the United States and we heard it on the news. Because in our countries back home, there is no word you call it Persian Gulf. It's always Arabian Gulf. That's how we've been taught. These are all the textbooks, news, everything says Arabian Gulf. When we came here, when the news was talking about Persian Gulf, we were looking, where is the Persian Gulf? We've never heard. So textbooks are written depending on the policy where you stand, depending on your religion and background and history of the country. They're very differently written. So 7 continents. This is basically what you have learned, right? North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Now there are other and Antarctica. Now some other countries also say 7, but they call this one here Oceania because Oceania includes Kiribati and New Zealand as well. That's why they don't call it Australia. Now some other textbooks around the world, they say 6 continents because America is 1, the Americas. Brazil, they call themselves America. They're part of America because it's the continent of America. You have to say the United States of America so they know what you mean. In the past 150 years ago, when people from all other sides of the world, they used to come with the ship to the Americas, many of them actually landed here in Brazil first. And then they figured out this is not the United States of America, and then they figured their way out to go to the north, to go to the United States of America. So this is actually very common, calling the entire continent one the Americas. 6 continents. Now, because Asia and Asia is the largest continent, and Europe is the smallest continent. Because they're all in one landmass, they call it Eurasia. Some textbooks around the world, they're changing to put this one all together because they're not separated from each other with the waterways, right? So they call it Eurasia as one landmass. And North America, South America, Africa, Eurasia, Australia, or Oceania, and Antarctica. 5 continents. This is basically I have learned all my life in my textbooks back home. The Americas are one. There is no Antarctica. And then Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia, which we call it Oceania, basically because we include New Zealand and Kiribati. Now the reason I growing up, and I'm talking about 4 years ago, they might have changed their textbooks right now. Growing up at that time, when we didn't have Antarctica, not that we didn't have it, it was not a continent because it doesn't have a governing body. There is no governing body or political system or economic system for Antarctica. There's no one country in Antarctica. Any country can have a presence in Antarctica. And they can have basically the facility for themselves. They build facility and they put a flag. So you know just the countries from each other. You can recognize them just because of the flag that they have over their buildings. And it's mostly for research and research facilities, research and development. That's all what it is, Antarctica. Now, let's just start with Asia. Asia is the largest continent. It starts from the tip of eastern of the world, which can get close to Alaska. Remember, they said that I can see, who was that? They said that Sarah Taylor. That I can see Russia from my backyard. So that one starts from here, almost close to Alaska, all the way to Europe, bordering with Scandinavian countries. So Russia has it, basically one side of Russia is day and the other side is night, right? That's how big Russia is. Even though after 1989 that collapsed and was divided to 15 different countries, even though those 14 countries are separate from, independent of Russia, still Russia is by far the largest country in the world. Now these are all the parts of Russia that were separated from Russia. All these countries from here, and part of it are in Europe and here. Now, I think I talked to you guys about Caucasian, right? I said it the other day, Caucasian. Caucasian is here. The mountains of Caucasus, which is Caucasus, it starts from here and goes to here. And it has been historically this part, which is the mountains of Caucasus, and then 250 years ago, 150 years ago, when Iran sold, based on Turkmen Treaty, when they sold parts of Iran to Russia Tsar, this part fell under Russia at that time, which right now they're independent countries. And this part stayed within Iran. So all of these was part of Persian Empire, and they're all Caucasians, which is Caucasus. So the word Caucasians, that was my basically point to educate my students. The original Caucasians are predominantly Muslim people. 80%, more than 80%, probably 90% Caucasian word comes from the part of the world that is Caucasus, which is 90% Muslim. It's only Armenia, very small part here. This is Armenia here. It's only Armenia that is not Muslim. Georgia, which is us, Georgia, Azerbaijan, us, Azerbaijan here, they're all actually Muslims. So, and they look like me and they probably act like me, but we're Muslims. So, and I want to talk more about that to get the misconception out of your head, hopefully. Now, Indonesia, we're going to talk about Indonesia later. Indonesia and all the way to, now, this part, you guys probably know it as Middle East. It's called West Africa. The correct, West Asia, I'm sorry. West Asia, okay? So this is East Asia, this is West Asia. This is Central Asia. Afghanistan and Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, they're all Central Asia, this part, and this is West Asia. Now, because of the culture of North Africa being close to, I'm going to talk about North Africa right now. Let me just show you a map here. Africa.
Question, should we proceed? So just for Russia, because I always wonder that, you know, how it's in the Asian continent. For Russia, usually gets classified as a European country. So how does that work?
No, because Moscow falls, no, Russia doesn't classify as a European country.
Well,
Just because Moscow, their capital, falls under the Europe, because very small part of it is in Europe. Just like Turkey. Turkey, one tip of it only falls in, look, this is not the entire Russia. Russia actually goes, all of this is Russia too. So, but it falls under Europe, that's why it's gray here. That part, because their capital, Moscow, because its capital administration falls in Europe, that's what they probably call it. You've seen part of continent. And they never say Russians or Europeans or Russia falls under Europe. It's always Eurasia, because by geographical land, it falls mostly in Asia, but capital administration falls in Europe. Now, the same in Turkey. All of it is in Asia. One tip, just with bridge, a Bosphorus bridge, if you pass the bridge, the other side, very small tip of Istanbul falls in Europe. Because this side of the bridge is Asia, which is most Turkey, and then the other side is, it's Europe. That's what they call it, Eurasia. That's what they call it, the gap between east and west is basically connected with that bridge in Turkey. Now, Africa, the continent of Africa, probably you guys think like the Africa, many times I have noticed that misrepresentation of African continent. First of all, African continent is not one country, right? Most of the times we say, oh, Africa, Africa. It's not one country. It's very, very different, actually, sections of Africa. North Africa, which is Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and then we'll leave this one alone because it's a very complicated area of the world. That part, it's North Africa, which is mostly related, most closest psychological distance is very close with the Middle East or West Asia. That's why we will